Welcome to this bright and sunny day. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about life and humor and happiness. And then, since this sometimes turns into a Dear Diary-esque type discussion, I want to pose an idea. And I want to talk about kind of what my thoughts are heading into a retirement date. And so what we're going to start is I'm actually driving back. I had a work trip. I had to work some to do in Mississippi, and I knew I was in Mississippi, and here's why. Is that when I checked into my hotel, got to my room, I ended up calling the front desk because I got there, called the front desk and said, "Hey, I got a leak in my sink." And then the desk clerk says, "Don't worry, honey, everybody does that." Mississippi people. If I can figure it out, I'm going to add a little drum snare right there. However, that notwithstanding, my discussion, besides an obviously lame joke, is that there's a great quote by, let me see if I had it correctly, that says that Andrew Carnegie said there's little success where there's little laughter. And I want to share a quick little story with you. Is that this weekend I was, and because of this, it's got me thinking about what I need to be doing. I'm still actually driving in another city, so I hope I can find my route sans navigation aid, since I'm using my phone to record the video. But so earlier this week, I believe it was on Sunday, I was changing out of the pants that I wore Sunday morning. And as I was trying to pull my leg out of my pants, my foot got caught, and I immediately knew I was going over. I could feel myself. It was like slow motion. I started laughing. Thankfully, it was in my closet, which is carpeted, and I had also pulled down a bunch of clothes that I wasn't going to wear anymore, that I was going to donate, and they were in a pile on the floor. So as I rotated in slow motion, because I was going sideways, I rotated towards my back and tried to aim my fall towards that pile of clothes. So, well, I was able to put my hand down. I kept my elbow bent, and because I didn't want to hurt myself with that regard, and I fell down. I had my first fall in my 50s, and I just laid there on the floor, just laughing at the situation. My pants were around my ankles. I was laying on the floor just laughing at the silliness, because it happened so incredibly slow that as I went over and falling. So it's quite a humorous event. But my takeaway, besides just feeling so foolish and laughing at myself, is that I've noted before then, and even more so now, that despite my good track record for my cardio and my strength building by lifting weights, both important things to do. Remember, the third leg on that chair is nutrition, and we're not doing great on that, but it's always there, making those good decisions about food. But however, I'm doing great there. However, I think there's a little bit, maybe there's another part of that we need to consider, and that part is that kind of goes along with it is mobility. I've noticed as I've gotten older that my flexibility is not as great as it once was, and I notice especially getting dressed, whether I'm throwing on shorts to go to the gym or putting on pants or even taking those off, that my left side leg doesn't lift as high. So I feel like I don't have great flexibility. So I gotta definitely add more stretching in there and more flexibility to help me going forward. So I wonder if any of you guys have dealt with that and understand, or have dealt with your dealing with trying to, I think I'm gonna in the wrong lane, dealing with trying to ensure your mobility and flexibility as you get older. What kind of things have you done to do that? Is there a program you follow, or are you just stretching while you're watching TV? What's your magic ticket for more flexibility and mobility? That horn honk wasn't at me. If you hear that in the background, that was somebody else that was not turning left on their green arrow. So with all that being said, talking about little humor, little flexibility issues, my current, I don't even know if I would consider it angst. My current dilemma is as my app reminds me daily, which gets me very excited every time I see that because of the timeline, is that I have 8 months and 12 days, or 14 days. I haven't looked at the app today, so I had to see what today's date was. 8 months and 14 days until I retire. So my plan, and I've shared before that I'm a federal employee. I'm trying to navigate my leaving with taking care of all of my work before I go. Closing out casework, catching those that need to get caught. I've got almost 20 years of things to go through to get rid of, return, dispose of, or return to rightful owners. And I kind of go back and forth because I'm conflicted with the way I feel internally, because I've done this type of work for 28 years. And that I love a good caper. I love investigations. However, I can't do them forever. And I'm also kind of in a weird spot where I'm aware things are going on and that, I need to investigate, but I think it's a lifelong problem with screening complaints at work. You have to go after the good ones, or the high dollar ones, or the multi-involved criminal ones. But the biggest issue is trying to turn I'm hesitant to say blind eye, but just turn off that desire for the hunt, if you will. And then trying to do right. I guess that when I close this chapter, I don't want it to be still there. I'm trying to avoid having to get called back for court, get called back for arbitration, any other hearings. So I'm trying not to step off into anything else that's too big or would require extra work from me. But it's really hard to turn that off going forward, especially with short staffing and things like that. So it's kind of really on my mind a lot as I try to manage my workload with more new things being assigned to me at this point almost daily for me to take care of one way or the other. And so sometimes it feels like an exercise in futility. I'll have to see if I can add the graphic right here, the character that pushes the stone up the mountain and it keeps rolling down is kind of how I feel. But I kind of do feel like that is a lot of government work anyway, and definitely is the way law enforcement is that it's there's never a shortage of work, never a shortage of bad guys. So work is always there. However, I am just a cog in the machine. Potentially, I go out the door and they replace me. And so my mindset is I always try to leave things better than when I found it. So I don't want to leave, a task list with 25 things or, unsolved cases that need time. I'm trying to close out my stuff, but as more and more stuff gets assigned to me, it's just difficult to navigate that. So I guess I'm just trying to verbalize my thought process I go through here. So for those of you that may encounter this video, I would love to hear how you rationalized it. I guess, see if I'm speeding or running radar on the interstate. I've already been pulled over once today and had to navigate that. So gotta be mindful. Might set the cruise control as I meander through my thought process. So I'd be interested for people to chime in on how your thought process. Am I being crazy and trying to walk out of the door clean, meaning that there's nothing, I left it cleaner than when I found it, everything's dispositioned one way or the other? Or do I jump into that government mindset and walk away and it's somebody else's problem? But that's not really who I am. So I'm having a definitive struggle with that as I'm coming back from a work trip on 2 other cases, just trying to do some pre-investigative work to figure out the battlefield on those cases, and then I got some other travel coming up in the future. So it's just hard for me to rationalize in my mind how I guess in my mind I know how I want to go out, but I think in the current environment those are my expectations, and I think in today's time, today's environment, today's workspace, it's unreasonable and isn't going to happen. So that's been kind of the hardship in my mind, trying to rationalize that on what that looks like. So I'd be interested for anyone to chime in on. I know most of my peers are all not dealing with this issue right now, so I'd be more interested in what is your thought process in it, and am I being silly for doing that, or should I just catch as many as possible going out the door? I don't know that. I don't like the way that sounds, but I just know that there's a plethora of casework to do, and there's kind of a shortage of folks to do it right now. So it's a tough one to navigate. So I'd be interested to hear your comments going forward. But anyway, and if you're in Mississippi, I was just making fun. If I was in Arkansas, I would have said the same thing. But probably in Louisiana, I would say same. Remember, you got a leak in the sink. They might ask you if it was the toilet okay, or they may say, go ahead, we ain't got a problem with that. So anyway, talk to you again soon.